So what if you don't want anything that's on your Yupo paper and you want to bring it back to the original? You can, with your alcohol on a baby wipe, you can bring it back, almost bring it back to the way it was. It's not going to be perfect, but you definitely can start over with some more experimenting. So you don't necessarily have to use that particular thing you did the first time. You can keep playing, okay? So that's another thing you can do, is you can wipe out your Yupo from what you did from the start, like when you were experimenting and you just, oh, well, I don't really like this. I think I'd like to do something else. You don't have to waste your Yupo paper, in other words. Okay, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a bigger brush, and I'm going to see. Okay, I'm going to get a bigger brush, and I'm going to just put color on here, because we're going to do another method that you can use with your Yupo paper. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put the Yupo paper and just kind of let the watercolor drip as it wants to. You may have to put quite a bit of water on it. You can also spray it. And just let it drip down. Alright, so this is the background of my painting. So, while I have wet watercolor, I'm going to take a dripping tool. It's basically just a little plastic pipette that I have, but you can use, you know, anything that, you can even take a straw and put it in the water and, bring the water up to the inside the straw and then just drop it. Okay, anyway. So this is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be randomly dropping the water, and it's going to cause little blooming shapes. All right. And then I'm going to scrape some of this to disperse some of these little shapes. And I'm going to just kind of draw some lines in the watercolor just to draw in the wet watercolor. And I'm going to take my fork and again just do some marks inside the wet watercolor. Now this one, when it dries, the marks will show up. And what you may do is you may decide that you want to do a layer and let it dry and then come back and do another layer over that. Because the watercolor on Yupo does dry fairly slow. It's very workable for quite a long time. So, you may do that, actually. That's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to create some marks because I like the idea of the marks showing up. It's like it doesn't show up until the watercolor is dry. But meanwhile, I think I'm going to take use a darker color. And then, again, put the darker color in. And again, just kind of pull that dark color through. And this may be something you want to do also. It just makes an interesting shape. Now, you really could not do this with regular watercolor paper because it would really absorb really fast. But you can do it with Yupo. And watercolor because of this surface. Now what I'm using is, I'm also using water brushes that have water in them, and it really helps me to do the dripping. So that's a good thing to have if you don't have water brushes. They're really good to have for this method, this technique. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another skewer